We talk about the steps to deal with bottleneck activity. Now we understood from the previous session that within your production process, it is possible that certain processes or certain machines they have lower capacity than as compared to others, which means that they are producing at a lower rate and they become the bottleneck resource. The bottleneck means the limited resource or that part of the process which is producing less than the other parts of the system. So how to handle with that? So first thing is that you identify the binding constraint, which is called the bottleneck. Like we discussed earlier, that it is possible that you might be having department A, or you can call it machine A, machine B, or machine C. Machine A is producing 100 units per hour. Machine B is doing 60 units per hour. And machine C might be doing 100 or maybe 90 units per hour. Let's call it like this. So this is the bottleneck resource. So the first step is that you identify that which process or which machine is the binding constraint, which is the bottleneck. In this case, B is the bottleneck. And we understood that our maximum production will be the capacity of the bottleneck resource. It does not matter that A produces 100 or C produces 90. The maximum output, what can be generated is only 60. So first we identify the bottleneck. The second is exploit the constraint to achieve the highest possible output. Now, how highest possible? Because this is the highest possible output. So what you can do at the moment that what you maximum can produce is 60 per hour, 60 units per hour. Because because they go in like this, okay? So production starts from A, it goes to B, from B it goes to C, and then it goes to the final output. So even if you produce 100 here, they will become inventory. You will have a closing inventory of 40 here every hour because department B or machine B can only process 60. So 40 will be left here. Okay. So what we do here that considering the bottleneck resource, considering the bottleneck or this constraint, we exploit it with the highest possible level means that you take your output to this level. You don't produce 70 or 80 or 90. You can only produce 60 and you should be producing 60. And then subordinate everything else to the constraint. Subordinate everything else to the constraint means that this is your maximum limit. Now all your activities should be aligned with this limit. So they should also be doing 60 and they should also be doing 60. Nobody should be doing 100 or 90. What bottleneck is doing, so if there are 4 people, they are walking, one of them is walking slow, everybody should walk at the pace or at the speed of the slowest person in the beginning so that you go together. Yes, later on you try to push that person a bit fast. You say, okay, let's try to move faster. And this is what we do now in the 4th step. We say elevate the system's bottleneck, which means that, okay, if we see that 60 is not enough and we can do and we should be doing better. So what you do that you try to elevate it, you try to increase it. So when you try to increase the 60, you don't try to make it 100. You should try to make it 90. You should add a little bit of more equipment so that this department, this process can produce 90. Don't go for 100. Because if you go for 100, then 90 still is the bottleneck. Even if I make it 100, still 100 I cannot do because then this becomes the bottleneck. So you go one step up always, okay? Don't go to the maximum, go to the next step. So elevate the system's bottleneck so that you increase the capacity, it means, and repeat the process. And then you repeat the process. Repeat the process means that once you make this one as 90, now both of them are 90, now you elevate them to 100. Now you make this 100 or this 100, okay? So step by step, you should go. You cannot go to the highest one in the very beginning. Otherwise, the 90 will become the bottleneck. So production scheduling and bottleneck resource, how do we do that? How do we elevate that? How do we increase that? How do we, remove that bottleneck resource? So we say that in traditional cost accounting, when we were doing absorption costing system, improving efficiency and creating more inventory will increase profit. So this was what happened in traditional. The more you produce, you enjoy economies of scale, your production cost goes down and you make more profit. Higher inventories reduce the cost of sales and increase reported profit. This was what our common belief was. In the theory of constraints, oppositely, using non-bottleneck resources above the amount required for maximum throughput is wasteful. Using non-bottleneck resources above the amount, which means that non-bottleneck resource was 100 in department A and 90 in department C. So if you start making 100 units or 90 units, it will be wasteful because you will have extra pile of stock with you. Because in between the department can only do 60. So even if you make 100, this will only process 60 and 40 units will remain here. It increases unused inventory levels. As per theory of constraint, inventory costs money. And of course, when you have extra inventory piling up here, 40 units every hour, it costs you more storage space. That is money. Your interest cost, because your money, your funds are stuck there. You could have put that money in a bank and earned some income. So inventory is not desirable. We say that we don't want to have wasteful inventory, unnecessary inventory, which is not giving us any benefit. So what we need to do, we need to increase the throughput. Throughput of what? Throughput of that, that constraint, throughput of that bottleneck resource. So now increasing throughput. So we understand that what is stopping us from producing more is the bottleneck resource. So we should do something about it. What should we do? Increase the throughput, which means throughput is the rate of production. So increase your rate of production. Of what? Of that piece of equipment, that machine, that department, that process, which is working at a slower rate at the moment. So we should increase it. How do we increase that? So we say, for example, so the theory of constraint states that the aim should be to maximize total throughput of the organization. And for example, time on machine X may be a bottleneck resource. The ways to increase output capacity of machine X includes the following. What can we do? One, move from 5 working days in a week to 6 days or even 7 days if it is needed. So department B and C, A and C, which are okay, they can work 5 days, but the department B or the machine B can work 6 days or 7 days. Maybe move from 12-hour production day to 18 hours, or maybe 24/7 you can go. Carrying out routine maintenance work, which means that you do not let that machine breaks down. So you carry on routine maintenance so that everything goes in place. These are just few measures. Alternatively, you can, increase the capacity. You can bring in a new piece of machine there. So traditional costing versus throughput accounting. When I say traditional costing, I mean, remember that absorption costing method. The fundamental principle is that maximize the production and decrease the cost, decrease the fixed overhead cost per unit, and so on. If we see the differences, let's discuss one by one. Do not try to read everything. Everything has come on screen at once. You stay with me. So we say in traditional costing, labor cost and variable overheads are treated as variable cost. This is the first difference. In throughput accounting, we say only material is the variable cost. All other costs are fixed costs, including labor, including variable overheads. Whereas earlier in traditional costing method, we said material, labor, and variable overhead. These three are the variable costs. Here we changed the scope. Second, inventory is valued at total production cost. So inventory, we say, okay, how much is the total production cost? $1 million. How many units did we produce? 100,000. So $1 million divided by 100,000, we say $10 per unit. That is the cost. So inventory should be valued at total production cost. Here, we don't value inventory at total production cost, which means material, labor, overhead. We only value inventory at the material cost because that is the only variable cost. All others are fixed. Value is added when an item is produced. The focus was on production. Here we say value is added to the system, to the organization when an item is sold. That is more realistic. Here it says product profitability can be determined by deducting a product cost from selling price. So what is your selling price? $25. What is your product cost? 50, total product cost, full cost. Material, labor, variable overhead, fixed overhead. So 25 minus 15, you say, oh, I made a $10 profit. Here, profitability is determined by the rate at which money is earned, at the rate. So how much do you make per hour? How much do you make per month or per week? So we will calculate throughput accounting ratio in the next session, and we will calculate it, the profitability based on per hour, per day, per week, per month, the speed at which the profit is added. So these are some basic differences in traditional costing versus throughput accounting. And then, of course, in the next session, we are going to learn something very important, which is throughput accounting ratio, TPAR, and we'll see that how does it work. I mean, how to calculate it and how it adds into profitability of an organization.